What is going on, friends, and welcome into another episode of Outreach Radio Chicago. I'm your host, Michael Mercado, and I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. On today's show, we are so honored to have Dr. Peter Ward to talk to us about his discoveries of climate change, how maybe we've had it wrong the whole time, and there may be another cause to what might be hurting our planet. Please stay tuned for that. It was very informative, a really cool interview, and I'm glad we had him on the show. We're everywhere in the universe, friends. We're on Twitter at mmercado2333, so follow us there. I'm on Instagram, instagram.com, MikeMercado2333. Like our radio show page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. I'm at Michelangelo Mercado. We have the brand new website, mercadoairwaves.wordpress.com. If you missed any episode of Outreach Radio Chicago, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/MikeMercado2333. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. For any of you who follow me outside of Outreach Radio Chicago, you know we do really cool interviews with celebrities and athletes. If you would like to find out how you can get those episodes ad-free and before anybody else, visit us on patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Dr. Peter Ward joins us on Outreach Radio Chicago. Stay tuned. Dr. Peter Ward, and he joins us today. How you doing? I know it's been a crazy time for you guys these last couple of weeks, huh?
Yes, Mike. It's been exciting.
Really fast, I know you must hear this question 1,000 times. Global warming is real. Climate change is real, right?
Yes.
Why the hell do people have this illusion or delusion that something that's scientifically been proven, people like you have spent years trying to prove this type of stuff, how in the hell, pardon my French, are people still thinking like that?
There's a lot going on here. Basically, the science is pretty clear that global warming is a problem. The world has warmed almost 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 50 years or so. But the real issue is why is the warming? How much of it is caused by man and what we can do about it? And there is considerable variation in the science, more so than you hear, about what those causes are. And what I discovered was about 10 years ago, I discovered an enigma in climate science, something that just didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And being retired, I was able to spend full time for 10 years now trying to understand what causes climate change and what we can do about it. And what's interesting is that the consensus that's out there is that greenhouse gases are the cause, and that man are the cause of the increase in greenhouse gases, and therefore man's responsible. But science is not done by consensus. Science is not done by popular vote. Science is done by data and analysis. And the data that I'm now seeing suggests that the primary cause of global warming is volcanic activity. And there are two distinctly different kinds of volcanic activity. One is explosive volcanoes that cause global cooling, and the other is effusive basaltic volcanoes that just put lava out over a large area of the land, and they cause global warming. And we see this throughout geologic time. So there is a scientific basis for questioning whether greenhouse gas theory is the cause.
Dr. Peter Ward joins us today on Outreach Radio Chicago. For more information, there's a great resource you could visit, whyclimatechanges.com. Now, that is absolutely amazing. I've never heard that before, that a volcanic activity having to deal with that. Why something so big, something so in front of our eyes and our faces that we, I think of Hawaii, the first thing I think of is volcano. Why is it that it took so long, or that the data took us so long to find that type of data? Were we not looking under that rock?
Well, way back in 1865, there was an assumption made about how energy travels through the atmosphere, how radiation travels, what it is. And to make a long story short, the way climate models currently calculate the energy in radiation overemphasizes the energy in the infrared absorbed by greenhouse gases and underemphasizes the energy in the ultraviolet that reaches Earth when ozone is depleted, the ozone layer protecting us from that high-energy radiation. And ozone depletion is caused both by volcanoes and also by the CFC gases that we heard so much about a few decades ago with the Antarctic ozone hole.
Mm-hmm. Well, so then, is there a common ground though? A happy, not a happy medium, but a happy medium between what you've discovered between, the volcanoes having to do with it and man-made? Is it just a deadly, cocktail between the two?
Well, part of the problem, I mean, I'm currently at the American Meteorological Society annual meeting, and part of the problem is that the scientists back in 1988 formed the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for the purpose of demonstrating consensus behind the greenhouse gas theory. It was not formed for the purpose of determining the true cause of global warming. And this strategy paid off. In the Paris Conference, Paris Agreement in December of 2015, national leaders agreed we had to do something about greenhouse gases. But the problem with this consensus is that science isn't done by consensus. And it now turns out that there's a serious problem, but the scientists are reluctant to talk. I mean, they've been working decades with a certain point of view, and they find it very hard to think from a different point of view. I mean, a number of top scientists have said to me, look, Peter, there's no way that you could be right and all the rest of us are wrong. And my response is, well, give me a scientific reason.
And how frustrating is that, though, where in the science community, that you're supposed to be open-minded to where the data takes you, to where the analysis takes you, to where all the research takes you. How frustrating is that one, some of your peers just do not want to be proven wrong, if that's the case, and for others that there's this hurdle that's been put in front of a lot of people who want to do the research on top of what has already been set as the foundation?
Well, if you read the history of science, almost every breakthrough in science, ranging from just the cause of ulcers, for example, is a famous one, to any of the major breakthroughs in science, it is the breaking with consensus that leads to that breakthrough. The most famous scientists in history are those that break from the consensus. And so it is frustrating. There's a history out there in all those cases of people being frustrated. I'm a bit frustrated because people are arguing with me from their belief system rather than looking at the data. And it's only human. I mean, we all have belief systems.
Right.
We scientists theoretically develop those on the basis of observations. And most of the climate scientists today believe firmly in greenhouse warming theory based on everything they've done for their lifetime. And so I understand where they're coming from. But as it's thought that in science, scientists can be a little more objective than that.
Dr. Peter Ward joins us today on Outreach Radio Chicago. Visit whyclimatechanges.com. Also go to YouTube. You can see a lot of cool videos with Dr. Ward. Very informative, really cool stuff. Now let's get into the hot button issues that have taken over everything. President Trump has now taken office, and obviously there's a lot of different feelings and controversies, if you will. But one of the things that seems to be a hot button topic is his decisions and his cabinet's decisions on climate change. And if you go on the White House website, they've taken out a bunch of different things. They've changed certain things. Can you tell us a little bit about what those decisions, how they're going to affect us, and what you're doing?
The most amazing thing about the greenhouse warming theory is we have never, ever done an experiment that demonstrates that when you increase the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the air gets warmer. Now, experiments are absolutely fundamental to science. It's the way of connecting a theory with reality. And it's really unfortunate that we've never done that kind of experiment. Mm-hmm. So one of the efforts I'm putting out there is trying to get people to realize we've got to do this experiment. And in fact, I'm offering $10,000 to the first person who can do it successfully.
Wow.
Because I know from my understanding of the physics, it's not going to be successful. Mm-hmm. So going back to your question, part of my effort at the moment is to get somebody in the Trump administration or on Capitol Hill to formally request that the scientists do this experiment. We don't need to argue. Just do the experiment. It should be relatively simple. Take some air, put in twice as much carbon dioxide, and compare the temperature of those two volumes of air.
Now, what if in a nightmare scenario do they put a blockade over you guys and they just dismantle everything? They just say, nope, none of this. This is all over with.
There is a genuine concern in the scientific community at the moment that they might order the destruction of much of the data that's out there, or that there are a number of concerns, I hope, which are irrational. We're not sure. But the important thing is science and politics should be kept separate. There was an effort, remember, when the Transition Committee was working with Department of Energy, that first they asked for a list of names of people who've been working on climate change. That kind of thing is not constructive.
Right. The
scientists are genuinely concerned based on what they understand, and we need to do science in a way that everybody's point of view is respected, but then we look for the best evidence as to what's going on. Several months ago, there was a big effort from the Democratic Attorney Generals to prosecute Exxon and other companies for what they knew about climate change and didn't tell the public and so on. That kind of thing is not constructive, and the kind of things that are being talked about now, or at least worried about relative to the Trump administration, are not constructive. We need to do the science. We need to do it as best we can. We need to realize that science results do change. I'm offering a change, and I think that eventually it will prevail, but we need to discuss it rationally and work on it rationally.
What should the goal be of the Trump administration moving forward, and for the next administrations and next generations of citizens of the entire planet?
The science is telling me what my data show, I believe quite clearly, is that greenhouse gases are not the fundamental cause of global warming. If that's the case, we can burn fossil fuels without worrying about overheating the earth, without destroying the environment of the earth for our children and grandchildren, and I have 6 grandchildren. So it's something that does concern me. But the evidence from the data are pretty clear that greenhouse gases are not the cause. If that's the case, then the Trump administration effort on developing fossil fuels and on pushing the economy forward, getting more jobs, would be an appropriate decision based on the science of what we understand about climate.
Before I let you go, there's one more thing I want to ask. Being part of the media myself, and you've done these media tours, and you've been part of the battle forever. You talk about words like fossil fuels, talk about Donald Trump and climate change and all these buzzwords and all these things that get people's attentions and everybody has an opinion on, with media trying to find its own way to get its ratings. What do you want to tell us in general, an unbiased idea of what you want to see happen with your research and what you would like to see down the future beyond Donald Trump, beyond any of this political nonsense that we're going through? You talk about you have your grandchildren, you want them to have grandchildren one day. All this biasness to the side, all that BS to the side. What do you want to see happen?
Fundamental thing to understand is that science is never settled. It's very important to realize that we're always advancing in science. If we weren't advancing in science, we don't need scientists. So science is never settled. We're always trying to find the most accurate information we can. Public policy needs to be based on the best science available. Scientists don't make public policy. Policymakers make the policy, but they need to have the best science available to them. Unfortunately, in the climate change area, there's been a big battle over what's better science than others, and it's gotten pretty bloody and pretty nasty. And the reality is that the consensus is not turning out to be correct. And we all need to have a little humility and recognize, look, here in science, it's the data that matter. It's what we observe in nature that matters.
Any advice for any young researcher, politician, scientist, whatever the case may be, that are going to get in this field and they're going to get the brash end of both sides, from the progressive and the conservative, because of how deeply people believe in what they've been told for the last 30, 40 years?
The biggest advances in science in the history of science have typically been done by young people in their 20s. The problem they have is that their seniors are often oppressive about what they're allowed to think about, but the young people have open minds. I've been going to several professional meetings around the country where I operate a booth in the exhibit hall. At the American Geophysical Union meeting in December, more than 1,060 people stopped by to talk. And the ones that were most interesting to talk to were the young graduate students and the postdocs who had an open mind. They were willing to listen and discuss. They didn't necessarily agree with me. That wasn't necessary. What they were willing to do was discuss rationally and to argue a point of view. Debate is what science thrives on. Consensus is what politics thrives on. We need to get the debate back into climate science.
Dr. Peter Ward, thank you so much. It's whyclimatechanges.com. Please, do you have anything that you want to shell out, social media, any upcoming events, a book, a movie based on your life?
A couple of things. One is there's a website called justproveco2.com. It's a one-page website, and it explains that we haven't done an experiment and what we ought to do. You can also find me on Twitter at the letter Y, climate changes. And I've got more than 10,000 followers there at the moment.
Ah, nice. So, Dr. Peter Ward, thank you. Have a good one. Enjoy it.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's a real pleasure talking with you.
And that'll do it for us, friends. Thank you so much for joining us on Outreach Radio Chicago. A huge, huge thank you to Dr. Peter Ward for taking some time and giving us some awesome information. If you would like some more, visit whyclimatechanges.com or justproveco2.com. Also follow him on Twitter at whyclimatechanges. He does some amazing work. Whether or not you agree with him or disagree with him, he said it best. Just to have conversations, amazing, and he is so open to talk to anybody. So please check him out, guys. He does some awesome work. So thank you again to Dr. Peter Ward, and thank you all for joining us. Follow me on Twitter at mmercado2333. I'm on Instagram, MikeMercado2333. We're on YouTube. If you missed any past episode of Outreach Radio Chicago, just subscribe to me. YouTube.com/MikeMercado2333. Visit the website, mercadoairwaves.wordpress.com. And for any of you who want to follow me outside of Outreach Radio Chicago and would like to receive any of our interviews with celebrity and athletes ad-free and before anybody else, visit us on patreon.com/MercadoAirwaves and find out how you become a Patreon there. Thank you again to Peter Ward. Thank you all for joining us. Take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Take us home, Hob. Hey friends, Mike here from Outreach Radio Chicago and Mercado Airwaves. I am so excited to let you in on a new service we are providing. If you or someone you know has an upstart or established business and company and would like to do some marketing on various platforms, you can do that right now by becoming an official sponsor and power all our interviews with athletes and celebrities. We assure quality audio in the beginning and ending of our interviews that will spotlight your amazing business and help bring in as much traffic as possible to all your outlets. From award-winning celebrities, Sundance Film darling director David Farrier joins us.
Appreciate you having me on the show.
To world champion athletes, UFC bantamweight champion Dominic Cruz. Dominic, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
We promise you the absolute best from the entire staff of Mercado Airwaves. For more information, visit us on patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. Follow us on Twitter at mmercado2333. Subscribe to us on youtube.com/Mike Mercado2333. Like the radio show page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. Follow us on Instagram, Mike Mercado2333. And visit the website, mercadoairwaves.wordpress.com. Thank you for listening and all the support.